Hey guys, my name is Jamison Reynolds, and I'm your worship and media pastor here at SCC. These next few videos will be a brief tutorial over how we use our soundboard on Sunday mornings. Now during this first video, I'd like to just give you a quick overview of the layout of the board. This board right here is the board I use at my house for recording, but it is an analog board. It's a 12-channel board. The board we use on Sunday mornings is a 16-channel board. It is analog as well. So just for purposes of this video, everything pretty much translates the same. So just bear in mind what you'll be using on a Sunday morning is just a little bit larger scale, but the components and the way it works and all that is pretty much the same. Now let's just start out with just the basics. As you see along the bottom, this down here are the faders. If you weren't familiar with that, these are the faders. These are kind of what fine-tunes the sound on each channel. And so that's a lot of what you'll be working with as far as dialing in the sound and getting to where you want it. So the bottom along those are the faders. This is for each individual channel. As you see in the far right, the faders over here, that controls just the main, which controls everything you hear. Everything that's running through the channel is controlled by the mains. Then if you move up top, you can see the gain knobs for each channel. Now the gain knob is more of a broad strokes. This controls the large amounts of volume for each channel. So for instance, if channel 1 right here were our kick drum and you're moving the fader up and you're really just not getting the volume you're needing and you're having the fader maxed out, that means you're going to have to use the kind of broad strokes of the gain on that channel. So you would pull the gain up necessary to get it to where it would need to be. So again, that's the gain knob, and that controls kind of the broad strokes of the volume. Located below the gain knobs are the EQ knobs, and you can see those all right here, the high, the mids, and the lows, and they correspond for each channel in line. So again, if this was our kick drum, that would the high for the kick drum would be controlled there, and the mid volume and the low volume. On the board we use on Sunday mornings, it has 4 channels. It has a high, 2 channels of mid, and a low. So again, using the kick drum as an example, everything right now is pretty much set at 12 o'clock. If you're not just getting enough low end punch, you can tweak that low end just by pushing the knob over. If it's too much low end, you could pull it off there, or if you're needing a little high, you could roll the high on just by doing that. So again, those correspond for each channel. So to control the EQ for that channel, you just would control it in line. Say if my vocal were on this channel over here, the high, mid, and low dials in for each corresponding channel. Like I said, pretty self-explanatory. The next area I'd like to talk about are the auxiliary channels, or what we use for the monitor channels. This board, as you see the knobs in red, we just have 1 auxiliary channel. On the board on Sunday mornings, there are 4 auxiliary channels, and at the top of the board they're labeled who goes to which auxiliary. For instance, I am auxiliary 1, Joel, our drummer, is auxiliary 2, and then 3 and 4, how they are labeled. The way that works is pretty simple. Let's go back to the kick drum, for instance. Right now, say this were monitor 1, there's no kick drum in there. If I needed more kick drum in my monitor, which would be monitor 1, you could go over to the kick drum and you would pull it up until it's at an appropriate volume. And say I needed, the guitar was in channel 2. So the guitar is in channel 2 and there's no guitar in my monitor. So you would go up to monitor 1, pull it up to where it needed to be, or if it's too loud, you can pull it back down. So again, there are 4 auxiliary channels, and those control our monitors. Now the next part of the board I'd like to show you is, it's a pretty simple function, but it's a very powerful function, and that's the mute button for each channel. Say we have finished playing our set and all the faders are up and the band has come off stage. One thing that you want to do on the sound is to mute all the inactive channels. And so you can go through and do that by hitting the mute button, and you can see that everything is muted by how it's lit up. So if the band's not on stage and we're not playing and Kenny's up there speaking or whoever's up there speaking, we would want the channels that aren't in use muted. Very simple to do, but it makes a big deal. Sometimes unwanted feedback or noise can happen if channels are left unmuted like that. Okay, the last little part I would like to show you is just the main mix fader. On this board, it has 2 faders for a left and right. on our board on Sunday mornings that only has one fader, but it works in the same way. This controls the overall volume for everything. Now, there's more than likely going to come a time where someone who's authorized will come back. Maybe Kenny will have told one of the elders, hey, just the overall volume is just a little too loud. We have just cranked it a little too much. And it's easy to control everything. You can just pull everything down just a slight hair by controlling the main mix fader. So in review, one of the easiest ways to get comfortable and get acclimated with the board is just to know the lingo and know where all the components are. Like I said, we have the gain knobs at the top. We have the EQ here located in the middle that controls the high, the mid, and the low frequencies. And then the auxiliary or monitor mixes, and then the faders at the bottom. Once you get to know the language of the soundboard and you can communicate with me on stage effectively, or communicate with the other sound engineers or whoever's running computer, that's really the biggest hurdle you'll have to learn as far as getting to know the soundboard. It's just getting to know the lingo of everything and how everything corresponds.